Imagine stepping into a candlelit room in the heart of Renaissance Florence. The smell of oil paint lingers in the air, and on the walls, freshly created works of art shine with gold leaf and mysterious symbols. Among these images, you notice something curious: figures holding swords, chalices, staffs, and pentacles. At first glance, they seem like simple decorative motifs, but if you look closer, you realize they echo the imagery we now associate with tarot. Could it be that these cards, often dismissed as fortune-telling tools, hold a much deeper connection to the very fabric of Renaissance art and mysticism? The answer is yes, and today, we are diving into the hidden world where tarot and Renaissance painting collide. The Renaissance was not just an era of art, it was an age of ideas, of rediscovering the ancient wisdom of Greece and Rome, of translating forgotten texts, and of fusing Christianity with older, esoteric traditions. It was a time when scholars, artists, and mystics were obsessed with symbolism. Every flower, every gesture, every color had meaning. So when you look at a fresco by Botticelli or a painting by Leonardo da Vinci, you're not just looking at pretty pictures, you're decoding an entire cosmic language. And this is where tarot slips into the story. Tarot cards, as we know them today, emerged in the 15th century in northern Italy, during the very height of the Renaissance. But here's the twist: they didn't start as mystical tools. They began as playing cards for the nobility, a luxury pastime where artists hand-painted elaborate decks. The Visconti-Sforza tarot, one of the earliest surviving decks, was created for the ruling family of Milan. And it's here that we see the crossover with Renaissance art. The images are not crude sketches, they are miniature masterpieces, painted with the same care as religious icons. Think about that, cards you could shuffle and play with, but each one carrying layers of meaning, just like the frescoes in the chapels of Florence. What makes this so intriguing is that the visual language of tarot, its symbols of the Fool, the Magician, the High Priestess, and the Wheel of Fortune, mirror the exact same symbolic currents flowing through Renaissance art. Take for example Botticelli's Primavera. On the surface, it's a celebration of spring, but hidden inside are figures that echo archetypal themes of rebirth, transformation, and divine wisdom. The same archetypes embodied in the tarot deck. The Fool's carefree leap, you can see its energy in Mercury guiding the souls in Botticelli's painting. The Empress, symbol of fertility and abundance, she's right there in the lush figures of Venus and Flora. And then there's the influence of Hermeticism and Neoplatonism, two philosophical movements that fascinated Renaissance thinkers. These traditions believed that the visible world was a shadow of a higher, divine reality, and that symbols were the bridge between human understanding and cosmic truth. Tarot fit perfectly into this framework, whether or not its creators fully intended it. When an artist painted a Wheel of Fortune card, it wasn't just about luck, it was a visual meditation on the rise and fall of human destiny, echoing the medieval idea of Fortuna's wheel, a motif that also appears in manuscripts, stained glass, and mural cycles across Europe. One of the most compelling aspects of Renaissance tarot is its connection to the intellectual circles of the time. Take Marsilio Ficino, the Florentine philosopher who translated the Corpus Hermeticum, a key text in Western mysticism. Ficino believed music, symbols, and images could align the human soul with the divine. Now imagine holding a tarot card in that context, not as a game piece, but as a tool, a kind of spiritual mirror reflecting universal truths. Even if the nobility saw it as entertainment, the deeper undercurrent was always there. Let's pause and consider the symbolism of a single card, the Magician. In the Visconti-Sforza deck, he's a refined figure, surrounded by objects that seem like props of both stagecraft and alchemy. In Renaissance art, magicians, alchemists, and even saints were depicted holding similar tools: chalices, staffs, scrolls, and coins. These weren't random, they were the same symbols tied to the four elements: earth, water, air, fire, the very foundation of mystical thought. So, every time a player drew the Magician, they were unconsciously engaging with a visual code that connected them to centuries of philosophical and spiritual tradition. And then there's the High Priestess, or La Papessa, as she was called in early decks. This was controversial imagery, a woman dressed in papal robes, holding a book of wisdom. In a time when the Catholic Church controlled nearly every aspect of spiritual life, the idea of a female pope, even symbolically, was radical. Yet this card existed, and its symbolism resonates with depictions of the Virgin Mary, of sibyls painted in Sistine chapels, and of allegorical figures of wisdom. Here, tarot and Renaissance art merge again, both daring to imagine feminine wisdom as divine authority. We can't forget the Tower, a card that shocks modern readers with its lightning strike and falling figures. But look at Renaissance frescoes, and you'll see towers crumbling under divine wrath, representations of the biblical Tower of Babel. or cities destroyed in apocalyptic visions. The tower was not just a random scary image, it was a warning, a reminder of the fragility of human pride. Artists painted it on church walls, and card makers painted it for the table game. But in both cases, the meaning was unmistakable: beware the fall. What's truly fascinating is how these symbols traveled. Art was a language understood by both elites and commoners, and tarot carried this symbolic language into more intimate, playful settings. Imagine a noble family gathered around a table in Milan, shuffling and dealing cards that echoed the very same mysteries being painted on the ceilings of their chapels. It's almost as if tarot democratized the symbolic universe of Renaissance art, putting cosmic archetypes directly into people's hands. The hidden meanings of tarot and Renaissance art also remind us of the blurred lines between the sacred and the secular. In Florence, Venice, and Milan, artists were commissioned by both the church and wealthy merchants. They painted Madonnas for chapels and mythological scenes for palaces, and in both cases, the language of symbols remained constant. Tarot simply became another canvas for these ideas. To us, the cards may look mysterious, but to a Renaissance viewer, they would have felt familiar, like seeing echoes of frescoes, sculptures, and manuscripts condensed into pocket-sized artworks. And this brings us to perhaps the most enigmatic aspect of all. Were the tarot creators fully aware of the mystical power they were encoding, or did the cards gain that aura later, as generations of mystics, occultists, and seekers rediscovered them? It's tempting to believe the former, especially when you see how meticulously the cards align with Renaissance concepts of order, fate, and divine truth. But even if the early patrons saw tarot as a fashionable pastime, the images carried meanings that refused to stay silent. They whispered across centuries, from the candlelit halls of Milan to the occult salons of 18th century Paris, to the decks we shuffle today in coffee shops and TikTok readings. The tarot in Renaissance art is not a relic. It's a bridge between play and prayer, between image and idea, between the human and the divine. When you next see a Renaissance painting, pause and look for those echoes, the gesture of a hand, the placement of a star, the curve of a wheel. These are not just details, they are tarot symbols, speaking across time, reminding us that art was never meant to be silent. It was always meant to be read, decoded, and lived. So the next time you shuffle a deck or gaze at a Botticelli painting, remember, you're not just looking at images, you're engaging with a living tradition, one that has carried the mysteries of human destiny for more than 500 years. That is the enigmatic power of tarot and Renaissance art. It is not just about fortune-telling, it is about storytelling, the eternal story of humanity seeking meaning in the symbols that surround us. If you enjoyed watching, be sure to hit that like button. It truly makes a difference for the channel. Pass this video along to a friend who enjoys a great mystery. And if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and do that so you don't miss what's coming next. There's still so much to explore, and I'd love to have you join me for it.